Good morning, everybody. This week we're going to be making our 4-bean salad. So in your box, you've got a bag of beans. It's got white beans, you got chickpeas, you got pinto beans, and you got red beans. There's also a couple bay leaves in there. So we're going to use that. We have a vinegar spice mixture that's in this little ramekin right here. And we also have some oil that comes in this container. So the first step of this process today is we're going to take these beans and we're going to soak them in water overnight. So I'm going to take about 2 cups of water, pour it right into this bag, seal it up, and we're going to let it soak overnight. What that does is start to impart moisture back into the beans, and then you'll see as the process goes, they're really going to start to plump up. So that's the beginning part of it. We'll come back tomorrow and we'll work on the rest of this, okay? Good morning, everybody. So we've soaked our beans, and actually these beans have been soaking for about 5 days. So anytime that you want to soak beans and leave them in the fridge for a little while, that's the big thing. Leave them in the fridge. So that way they'll stay good. The starches don't start to ferment or anything like that. The cold temperature will keep them good for you as long as you need. So you got your bag, the beans have soaked, they've plumped up nice and good. So what you need today is a pot. You're gonna just open your bag, put your beans in there. We're gonna put our pot on the stove, turn it on high, and bring it up to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, we'll turn it down to a simmer and cook the beans until they're tender. The other part we're going to work on this morning is our vinaigrette. So in your box, you had a container that had your oil in it, and you also had a small container that had your herbs and your vinegar in it. So what we're going to do is mix those together, and it's going to be what we call in the industry a broken emulsification. So it's not going to be completely emulsified where the vinegar and the oil molecules are stuck together. These are actually going to fall apart, and that's okay. It's called a broken vinaigrette for a reason. They make different styles along the way, and this one will just coat your beans really, really well and give them a lot of good flavor. Now there is salt and pepper into the spice mixture that I gave you, but once we get done cooking the beans, we are going to season them a little bit more. So I wouldn't season this heavily with salt and pepper. We're going to season the beans themselves once they are done cooking. So now, if you look inside of here, you've got a nice oil and vinaigrette with a 3-to-1 ratio, right? 3 parts oil to 1 part vinegar. The herbs and spices in there is what's going to make this very similar to what we call an Italian vinaigrette. So I'm going to set this aside. We're going to cook our beans. We may have to add a little bit of water back in with our beans along the process. And when that happens, I'll bring you back and show you what's going on, okay? All right, y'all. As you can see, our beans are really coming up to temperature now, but I'm not happy with the level of water. They're not quite covering the beans completely. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and add another 2 cups of water in there, just to give it some room to cook and give the beans some extra room inside of the water. We're going to let these cook about a half an hour, and I'll bring you back to show you how to test them to make sure they're cooked all the way. All right, everybody. So our beans have cooked for about 30 minutes, and I added 5 more minutes to it because they weren't quite where I wanted them to. So about 35 minutes total. The way that you know that your beans are going to be cooked all the way, I've got one of each one of the beans. This is a garbanzo, a pinto, a Pacific Northwest white bean, and then a red bean, a red kidney bean, okay? So the best way to know that they're all cooked all the way is you can take a spoon on a plate and just kind of smush them down. If you see the bean smush all the way without much effort at all, you have cooked beans all the way exactly the way you want it, okay? So what we're gonna do now, once the beans were done cooking, I put them in a strainer and I rinsed them with cold water. Got all the extra starch from them cooking in the water off of them. And so now I'm going to pour them into this bowl, rinsed all the water off, drained it all off. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick out my bay leaves, okay? You don't wanna eat your bay leaves. They won't be that delicious to eat, but they do actually add a ton of flavor in there. So we've got our beans, they're all cooked, and we have our vinaigrette. Now what we're gonna do is mix up our vinaigrette really well. Pour our vinaigrette, all of it, all over your beans, okay? Give them a good mix around. And look at that. This is what we're gonna call a 4-bean salad. Now, if you want to, you can season it with a little bit more extra salt and pepper if it doesn't have enough salt in there for you. When you go to eat it, I recommend that you let it set overnight before you eat it. So that way all of the flavors come together and it like the vinaigrette really soaks into the beans. When you eat it, you can sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan cheese on top of it. That would be awesome. If you really want to bulk it up with some heavier protein, you could add eggs to it. You could add some chicken to it. Even some ground beef to it would be really, really amazing. All right, so this is the assignment for this week. I hope you all have some success doing it, and send me your pictures when you're all done.